everybody? What's happening, everybody? Jacked up this Friday, October 25th, 2024. My name is Kevin Smith. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Loud Majority Live. 11 days. 11 days until we take back America. The polls continue to tighten. The polls continue to tighten with the RCP average now in a dead heat, and people are running scared. The more people see of Kamala Harris, the worse she does. The more they see of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, the better he does. I'm jacked up. We've got Madison Square Garden coming up in 2 days. Later today, we're going to be announcing our next local rally here on Long Island. East meets West. Make sure you stay tuned for that one. Keep it locked in here for all the updates on that. As I said, J.D. Vance sat down on a town hall with News Nation. I don't know who watches that channel, but it seems to be all the people. It seems to be hosted by all the people who have been fired by other networks. I'm talking to you, Chris Cuomo. Things not going so well. Things not going so well as multiple newspapers. A newspaper, for those of you who don't know what that is, it's a thing from the 70s. People used to read on the train on their way to New York City. Multiple newspapers have now refused to endorse Kamala Harris on their way out the door. Worrying sign for the Vice President of the United States. Also, Donald Trump continues to sit down with actual human beings as we await. Very possible Donald Trump right now is sitting down with the most popular show in the world, the Joe Rogan Experience. We will await whenever that happens. Everyone's playing the waiting game right now. So we'll see when that happens. Of course, Donald Trump will also be speaking in Texas today. That's how we know he's sitting down with Rogan, because he's in Texas right off the bat. But this weekend, he will also be at the Penn State-Ohio State game. Don't worry, nobody attends that. And he's doing it at City College in a very blue county. Penn State, obviously a gigantic college town, is always going to produce a blue county, but is that going to help him in the College City suburbs? We're going to break down all of that as we are moving and grooving here today. But you see the thumbnail of the show. Today is the day. Today is the day we have all been waiting for. Today's the day we've all been waiting for as he sits down with the king of media right now, Joe Rogan. And I spoke a little bit about this the other day. And I really want to dive into what this exactly means. We played a clip on the show yesterday of Jake Tapper on CNN being very, very upset that Donald Trump did not show up or declined to come to the CNN town hall. Now, why? Is it because CNN is not a friendly organization? Is it because he doesn't think anybody needs it? Is it because, I don't know, he doesn't trust Anderson Cooper? No, I think it's that Donald Trump, as any good businessman does, can see around the curve. Podcasting, the decentralization of the media is upon us. And while the D.C. establishment continues to have people like Kamala Harris sit down with the same boring, stodgy members of the media who they know are going to be on her side, she continues to drop in the polls while Donald Trump continues to rise. Alex Hayden, I thought Trump would maybe be at Monday night at the World Series. He could go to the World Series. I wouldn't doubt it. He's obviously friends with the Steinbrenner family. They've been friends for quite some time. But on the heels of this, we're beginning to see some of these newspapers. Once again, newspapers are large collections of paper. If you go like 30 or 40 pages into it, you'll find the crossword puzzle and the Sudoku puzzle. The only reason why anybody buys a newspaper anymore. But the New York Post which is owned by a not very Trumpian person. I want to be clear. The owners of the New York Post put a lot of money behind Governor Ron DeSantis. Well, they have made the clear and present choice. The New York Post endorses Donald Trump for president, saying that he is a clear choice for a better future in America. The reasons that the publication stated are a secure border and a sensible immigration system, safer cities, and the support of law enforcement, a thriving, low-tax, low-regulation economy for all, common-sense policies that restore the power of parents to choose what is best for their children, to keep men out of women's sports, and an America that is respected on the world stage. The editorial, penned by the New York Post editorial board, makes the case that America was better off in the 4 years during the Trump presidency than it was under the Biden-Harris. Than it was under Harris and Biden, citing the economy, employment, the border, and peace throughout the world. Saying, quote, to borrow a phrase from Ronald Reagan, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? That's the question a lot of people are going to have to ask themselves when they show up to the polls on November 5th. Also, once again, if you live in a state where early voting is a thing, go vote early, please. Because while we are going to talk heavily about polls today, the numbers that we're going to be focusing on are the early vote totals. Republicans traditionally do not vote early. Now that we are beginning to do this, we are beginning to free up resources throughout the campaign for those low propensity voters. Those are the ones who are going to win this. And even CNN is starting to admit some things that I don't think they were all too ready to admit. That not only could Donald Trump be on pace for an electoral college win, but in some of the more traditionally blue states, Donald Trump continues to make progress. Could Donald Trump pick up that popular vote victory, silencing the insane people who want to get rid of the Electoral College and bringing a mandate with him into the White House? But back to these newspapers. I actually had to look up what a newspaper was. Pretty weird stuff. While the New York Post is, of course, endorsing the New York candidate in Donald Trump, the LA Times is not endorsing Kamala Harris, which is mind-blowing that the LA Times would not endorse their former senator, and they're facing serious backlash because of this. The LA Times Guild actually went so far as to beg their subscribers to not cancel their subscription to the LA Times after the editor resigns over the owner's refusal to allow the paper to endorse Kamala Harris. This is a wild story. We were going to talk about it the other day, but we didn't get a chance to. The LA Times declined to endorse a presidential candidate after endorsing Democrats since 2008. Now the editorial editor has decided to resign. Meryl Garza on Wednesday declined because she was not okay with the paper's silence on backing Vice President Harris for president. The silence led the Donald Trump campaign to say that even her fellow Californians know she is not up for the job, which, of course, the rest of us very obviously know. The lack of endorsement and the resignation of Garza prompted the LA Times Guild to release their own statement begging their own readers not to give up their subscriptions, reminding them that their subscriptions pay the salary for those who are staffed at the paper. Saying, quote, we remain deeply concerned about the Times owner's decision to block a planned endorsement, they said. This is wild. Of course, the editor is saying, the editor who resigned, Garza, said, I am resigning because I want to make it clear that I am not okay with us on being silent, she told the Columbia Journalism Review, another outlet that nobody reads. In dangerous times, honest people need to stand up, and this is how I'm standing up. Garza was confused as to why the endorsement was prevented from running and said that her readers were as well, calling the decision perplexing. Harris, of course, is a native Californian. She's not a native Californian. She's a native Canadian, but whatever, who served her entire political career in the state as a prosecutor, district attorney, attorney general before running for Senate. It was the owner, Patrick Soon Shang Schwing, of the LA Times who made the call not to back Harris. He bought the outlet in 2018 and sent his message directly to the editor, Terry Tang. Garza didn't like it, and she is the one who had written the editorial she expected the paper to run backing Harris after the editorial board decided not to endorse her. This is a wild turn of events. Now, many people don't like the fact that many of these newspapers appear to be run by billionaires. Obviously, this has the radical left up in shambles. But that is the only way, at the moment, these newspapers can survive. Whether it's the New York Times family, who are relative billionaires or multimillionaires. This guy, he's a minority owner in the LA Lakers, so obviously he's doing very well for himself. Patrick Soon Song is a South African and American businessman, investor, medical researcher, and transplant surgeon. He invented a drug which is used to treat lung, breast, and pancreatic cancer. Seems to be an American businessman and healthcare worker. His net worth is $6.2 billion. So obviously he's got a little bit of money in the bank. But he addressed the lack of endorsement, saying that the editorial board was asked to draft a factual analysis of all the positive and negative policies by each candidate during their tenures in the White House and how each of these policies affected the nation. And that in addition, the board was asked to provide their understanding of the policies and plans by the candidates during their campaign and their potential effect on the nation for the next 4 years. The idea was to provide a clear and partisan information side by side so that the readers could make the decision for themselves. Instead of adopting this path, the editorial board chose to remain silent. So the owner of the paper asked his employees to do something. They didn't do it, so he chose not to endorse. I hate to break this to you, yuppie liberals who write for newspapers, but it turns out when the boss says stuff, you kind of have to do it. That's sort of the essence of being an employee. Garza's letter addressed the veto of the editorial, saying that in the wake of the decision, she asked herself if the presidential endorsement even mattered, or if anyone would even notice that the outlet had not explicitly endorsed Harris, since they are so frequent to dump on Trump. That's the editor of the LA Times. The editor of the LA Times actually came out and said, would anyone even notice if we didn't endorse anybody, since we spent all of our time shitting on Trump anyway? They just assumed that we're going to endorse Harris? That's how partisan these things have become. And it's hard to believe. But maybe some of these owners of these newspapers are starting to realize that when you cut out half of the country, people stop subscribing to your newspaper. I know this is a foreign concept to so many people. But maybe they're starting to notice. Of course, they weren't the only ones who have seemingly pulled back their endorsement, or not exactly thrown it out there. Before we get rocking and rolling today, guys, hit that thumbs up button, share the video out all over the place. I think I skipped that part of the show. Let's pop that live chat on the screen. Mary just got a package from Kevin Smith. I bet you it's some good stuff. Shout out to Marissa in the chat. Angela, Leanne, how are you? How's it going, Uncle Richie? What's going on? Steve Slugs, haven't seen you in the chat in a while. How's it going, kid? How's it going? Hazel Kitty, what's going on? ZBM, how is life in the beautiful country up there in Idaho? Creative Aaron, how many people am I going to see this weekend in Madison Square Garden? How many people am I going to see? I'm always curious to know how many will be out there. I got my black MAGA hat. It's great. Oh, wait. You mean that one? Yeah, you know what? Let's leave that on for the show today. Let's leave that on for the show today. Hit that thumbs up button, guys. Share the video out all over the place as we're rocking and rolling here. Before we keep going, guys, head on over to lfatv.us. That's lfatv.us. That's everything you need for all things LFATV related. You're going to want to check out the shop or consider becoming a monthly donor over here at lfatv.us. $5-10 a month. Whatever it is you guys can do, we really appreciate it, and that is the best way to support this network and everything we've got going on over here. We can't do it without your help, guys. This is user-generated content, and we can't do it without you. Yo, Callie, what's going on? Actually, you know what? Before we keep going here, I got to give a shout-out. To my good friend Callie here. Let me pull this up real quick before we move on to the next newspaper that is not endorsing Kamala Harris, because I want to make sure I give my shout outs here where they are needed. For everybody, and so many of you have done this. We are sending our 5th tractor trailer. That would be 05 tractor trailer down to North Carolina in hurricane relief. I want to thank everybody so much for everyone who donated. Everybody thank Callie for that. She's been going through some stuff recently, and she organized all of this. I also want to give a huge shout out to a couple of people. Before we do, here's the video. Alrighty, guys. Look, I just want to thank everybody who helped with this hurricane relief. I'm here with Senator Mario Matera here in New York. I want to thank Local 200 plumbers. You guys are out of control. Guys, this 53-foot trailer is full all the way to the back, and we've got more coming down to the Asheville, North Carolina area. Guys, I just want you to know that even though it may feel like some people have forgotten about you, Long Island hasn't. Local 200 hasn't.
Nassau-Suffolk Building Trades hasn't.
The Nassau-Suffolk Building Trades hasn't. Comac High School hasn't.
Comac Fire Department.
Department.
Debbie Verga, thank you so much.
Thank you
Dr.
so much,
Cox,
guys.
with the superintendent of Comac Schools, thank you so much. All people that donated their time, donated all of the supplies. Look at this. This is amazing. This is a 53-foot trailer. It's 53 feet. Look at this. This is amazing that we just loaded up with all the volunteers from Plumbers Local Union 200. Union Strong.
Absolutely. Callie, I want to thank you so much for putting all this together. We couldn't have done it without you. And I want to thank the Westbury Trailer Leasing and Repair Company for donating the trailer that's headed down to North Carolina. I'm here with Senator Mario Matera. Guys, give him a follow. The best senator in the New York State Legislature. Awesome guy. Guys, thank you so much.
Thanks, Kev. Thanks, Nicole. Thanks for all you guys do. Guess what? We had our elected officials here. Supervisor Wareheim was here. Assemblyman Fitzpatrick. Assemblyman Flood was here donating his time. I just can't say, you know what, we care. We care about you down in North Carolina, and hopefully we can make you put a smile back on your face. God bless everybody in North Carolina.
Guys, be safe. Stay loud. So I want to give a couple thanks real quick before we keep moving and grooving here. I want to thank Plumbers Local 200 on Long Island for allowing us to use their facilities. I want to thank State Senator Mario Matera. And I think he's the business agent for the union. I want to thank Supervisor Ed Wareheim. I want to thank Assemblyman Mike Fitzpatrick. I want to thank Assemblyman Ed Flood for coming down. All the help, all the guys from the union, and Callie, thank you so much for putting that all together. I know you got a lot going on right now, but you're really helping out a lot of people down there. So shout out. I want to thank Comac High School, my where I went to high school. I never thought I'd be doing that. Comac Fire Department and Debbie Verga over there for all the help they did. The amount of stuff they sent was huge. We've also got so much. We've still got so much stuff to put in there. So thank you all so much for that. So Callie, thank you so much. Even though, you're a little mad at me at the moment because, you Little George Washington thing happening. You know what I'm talking about. Guys, hit the thumbs up button as we're moving on here. So there's another newspaper that is that is refusing to endorse Kamala Harris. And it's not a small one. It's not a small newspaper. As the Washington Post, the home to, oh yes, I want to thank Westbury Tractor, Westbury Trailer for giving us the trailer, for donating the trailer for us to go down there with. Thank you guys so much. So the Washington Post declines to endorse a presidential candidate for the first time in decades. For the first time in decades. This is out of control. This is out of control. So not only does Kamala Harris's home state paper refuse to endorse her, but the city in which she lives, the city in which she is the second most powerful person, will not be endorsing a presidential candidate in 2024 or in any election moving forward, says the publisher of the paper, William Lewis, in a shocking move which breaks 36 years of tradition of endorsing mostly Democratic candidates for president. Lewis says the move will reestablish the Post as an independent newspaper and allow their readers to make up their own minds. Saying, quote, "We are returning to our roots of not endorsing presidential candidates, which has been a long-running tradition since the former owner of the paper may or may not have been sleeping with Robert McNamara in order to cover up bad stories about the Vietnam War. Go watch the movie. You'll know what I'm talking about." Lewis wrote in an op-ed, "We will not be endorsing presidential candidates or political endorsements of any kind. We recognize that this will read in a range of different ways, including as a tactic endorsement of one candidate or as a condemnation of another, which is exactly how you read it. That is inevitable, but we don't see it that way. We see it as consistent with our values. The Post has always stood for what we hope for in a leader: character, courage in service of the American ethic, the rule of law, respect for human freedom in all aspects. We also see it as a statement in support of our readers' ability to make up their own minds. This is the most consequential election in America in decades. Whom to vote for as our next president is up to you." So let me get this straight. 36 years you guys have been endorsing candidates, and you suddenly decided, oh, maybe we should let our readers do it. I wonder if that might have anything to do with some of our next stories. I remember if that will have something to do with some of our next stories, because things are not looking good for Kamala Harris. And even CNN is now having to admit the absurdly obvious. Before we get to that, Mike Lindell.
You're still looking good.
I'm still feeling good. You know, I've got all your MyPillow products. Mattress topper, bed sheets, MyPillows, towels, slippers, blankets, sleepwear, dog bed.
Whoa, Charles. Everyone now can get MyPillow products at huge discounts at MyPillow.com. That's right. Now's the time to go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of our 3-in-1 sale. We're bringing you exciting new products, overstock specials, and closeout deals you won't find anywhere else. For example, when you buy one of our brand new MyPillow 2.0s, you get another one absolutely free. And with our overstock sale, you save 50% on our luxurious Giza Dream bed sheets. That's as low as $29.99 for the best sheets ever. And with our biggest closeout special, you get our all-season slippers for only $35. Or our sandals and slides for just $25. Quantities are limited, and once they're gone, they're gone.
Guys, head on over to MyPillow.com, promo code LOUD. That's MyPillow.com. Promo code LOUD for up to 80% off everything on the website. That's MyPillow.com, promo code LOUD. I think we're going to do something with this here. Got to do something with this here. I'll fix the chat after the show. Guys, support the people who support this show by going to MyPillow.com and use promo code LOUD so the Mike knows we sent you. I enjoyed that so much. I enjoyed that so much. Loud majority, they are ignoring you. Who's ignoring me? Who's ignoring me? Nobody's ignoring me. Get the hell out of here with that. Get the hell out of that. Sly's got some questions. I'll just leave the chat there, and I'll let you guys figure it out on your own. So CNN is starting to have to come to a very, very intense realization here that Donald Trump may go into office not only with the Electoral College vote, but the popular vote looks like it could be having it too.
Donald Trump is very much in a position he could win the popular vote, which of course is something he would absolutely love to do.
And would be something very different than we have seen compared to last time and the polling compared to last time.
Exactly right. So I went back through the time machine, all right? I went back through the time machine to see where were the past two races at this point in the campaign. Look, Harris in the average poll right now is up by 1, well within the margin of error. You go back 4 years ago, Joe Biden was well ahead of Donald Trump in the national popular vote polls. He was up by 9. Even Hillary Clinton was up by 6 points. So now Donald Trump's in a position he really hasn't been before at this point in the campaign where he could truly compete, and we can truly say that the popular vote at this point is way too close to call. Of course, this is only going back 8 years. I wanted to jump even further back in my time machine to get an understanding. Hey, I haven't heard about a Republican potentially winning the popular vote in a while. And it turns out a Republican winning the popular vote, it hasn't happened since 2004 in George W. Bush defeating John Kerry. And that's only the one time that it has happened. In fact, you have to go all the way back to 1988 to find another one when it was George W. Bush's father, George H.W. Bush, winning the popular vote over Michael Dukakis. So the fact that the polls right now are so close, John, the fact that Donald Trump has a legitimate shot of winning the popular vote is something I think a lot of folks, including in my line of work, really didn't think could possibly happen when Donald Trump was running last time around. He could make history, not just for Donald Trump, for a Republican candidate as well.
Now, there are some reasons for this, and I think Democrats' heads are all exploding out there watching this right now. There are some reasons for this, which you're going to explain, but also begin to raise the possibility that we could see the reverse. We could see the reverse of things we've seen where a Republican wins the popular vote, but there's a chance for the Democrat to win the Electoral College.
Yeah, part of my job is to warn our viewers on either side of the aisle of an event that may occur that they don't necessarily like, and Donald Trump winning the popular vote could absolutely happen. You might as well wrap your minds around it now, folks, if you don't like Donald Trump. But on the flip side of that, a potentially good sign for Democrats is why is Donald Trump doing so well in the popular vote polls? You can dig down into the state level polling and you can see that Donald Trump is doing particularly well in California, Florida, New York, and Texas. Of course, none of these states are really on the board at this point, so Donald Trump may end up gaining in the national popular vote polls, but actually is wasting votes, which could in fact lead to a case where Kamala Harris could sneak by in the Electoral College by sweeping those Great Lake battleground states, which at this point are way too close to call, John.
That's right. It'd be interesting to see then if all that talk about Electoral College reform takes on a bit of a new light.
It may. In 2000, remember, folks thought that Al Gore would win the Electoral College and lose in the popular vote. It turns out they were all wrong.
All right. There you have it.
So Donald Trump could be taking home the popular vote win. And why is this sort of thing happening? Well, if we go back to 2020, and obviously I know most of you do not believe, most of you don't believe those numbers, but unfortunately at the current moment in time, we have no other way to judge it. Take a state like New York, my home state, where I am. Boom. Let's pop the vote up there. 23 points. Joe Biden ended up winning by 23 points in New York. That seems like a gigantic margin of victory. Well, now if we look at the polling averages in some of these states, the 538 polling has Donald Trump only down 15. Is that an Electoral College win? We're seeing that in many other states. Right now, California is virtually the exact same sort of scenario, with Democrats only being up 24, where last time they won it by 29. This, to me, is going to be one of the biggest shocks of this election cycle if Donald Trump is able to pick up the popular vote win. Now, we're beginning to see some states look like they're a little bit more in play than we thought. I have long been talking about on this show, states like New Jersey, Virginia, New Hampshire, we might be starting to see something a little bit different here. We might be starting to see a real uptick in the play of those states. New Hampshire, a recent poll just came out, and if we look at the RCP average, the average of the polls, Donald Trump is still down 5 points, but in the most recent poll from Emerson College, Kamala Harris is only up 4. Kamala Harris only up 4 points in that New Hampshire poll. Down from 9, down from 7, down from 11 from the University of New Hampshire. The leads are beginning to tighten in many of these states. The RCP average, let me pop this up on the screen for everyone to see, now has them running dead even in Wisconsin, dead even in Nevada, dead even in Pennsylvania, up in North Carolina, up in Georgia. He's down in Michigan, Arizona, he's up. Minnesota only by 5. We're starting to see a real uptick in a lot of stuff here. Let's pull up the Virginia polls for the moment, because the Virginia poll has Harris up 1. A Virginia poll, it's not on the screen, hold on. A Virginia poll only has Kamala Harris up 1 point in a survey of 725 likely voters. The polls are beginning to tighten in many places that we have not seen in quite some time. Now let's pop the big board up onto the screen here. Let's get the big board up here. Where is it? Bingo, bango. There we go. Boom. Big board's up on the screen. Let's check this out here. Let's look at some of the RCP averages. If we were just to go by the averages at the moment in time, what that would mean for Donald Trump. What do we got here? So let's move, let's see here. Let's move Nevada red. Wisconsin red. Pennsylvania red. All right, we're starting to get there. Now all we need is Georgia or North Carolina, and we win. That is without seeing any major flips in any other areas. That's without Arizona, and that's without Michigan. All we'd have to do is pick up either North Carolina or Georgia. And right now, the RCP average has them up in those states. We could see, let's see, where are we at here? Where'd it go? Boom. Georgia, North Carolina. Historic victories for Donald Trump all over the place. And the more we're seeing of Kamala Harris, the worse things are getting. I started off the show by talking about Joe Rogan, Ohio State, Penn State, obviously a gigantic game in a swing state. Donald Trump going directly to the people, while Kamala Harris continues to pander to the Washington, New York, and L.A. coastal elites. But J.D. Vance sat down the other day with Chris Cuomo of News Nation. I'm sure you guys have never heard of this network. As I said before, it's basically a network just with anchors who have been fired from other networks. And he started to talk about the idea of a unifying message. And while Kamala Harris continues to promote this idea of joy, even though she is the least joyful person who has ever lived, J.D. Vance is actually showing us that there may in fact be a way to unify the nation.
To me, the biggest threat to democracy is the rising tide of censorship. The idea that we should be trying to silence our fellow Americans rather than persuade them and talk to them. That's always going to lead to people being pissed off because they don't like to be told what to think or what to say. They like to talk to one another. And that's one thing that I'll always commit to. As you know, you're vice president for the next 4 years, I'll always try to talk to people. We'll go out there and we'll do events with people who disagree with us. We'll answer questions from people who don't always see eye to eye. But I think if we set the tone at the top, the leadership of this country is all about communicating with one another. I think that's how we start to heal the divide, but we all have a role in it. And one final point I'll say about this, and, you know, don't get too personal all the time, but, you know, one of the things I've seen, especially from, you know, some of my wife's friends and some of my friends, is that they disagree with us on politics sometimes. They'll get very personal about it. And if you're discarding a lifelong friendship because somebody votes for the other team, then you've made a terrible, terrible mistake and you should do something different. Like, don't cast aside. Like, most of my family obviously is going to vote for, you know, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. And if they're not, actually, I need to talk to them. But I've got friends who, like me personally, acquaintances who aren't necessarily going to vote for me. That doesn't make them bad people. And we can't, this is my most important advice, whether you vote for me, whether you vote for Donald Trump, whether you vote for Kamala Harris, don't cast aside family members and lifelong friendships. Politics is not worth it. And I think if we follow that principle, we'll heal the divide in this country. Thank you, Matt.
Now that is a unifying message. Now, look, is Thanksgiving going to be easy for many of you this year, one way or the other? Probably not. It's probably not going to be very easy for a lot of people. There's going to be a lot of arguing. There's going to be perhaps cranberry sauce being tossed across the table. Try not to hit grandma. She didn't do anything wrong. But that's the unifying message. Don't lose friends over this. And in my experience, at least, a very particular experience, Republicans are not the ones casting liberal friends aside. It usually seems to be the other way around. And it's a shame that has to happen because lifelong friendships go away. I have a dear friend of mine who I've known him since I'm about 8 years old and won't even talk to me anymore because of what I do for a living now. And I don't want that to be the way we do things here in this country. I really, really don't. You know? Some stuff's too important. So when you go on Thanksgiving, argue about sports the way we've always done it. Now, that News Nation interview did actually have some substance when it came to policy here in America. And I think this is going to be, or I hope this is going to be, the populism message moving forward. J.D. Vance was asked about homelessness in this country, and it's a problem, particularly in our major cities. We've discussed this all the time about how many organizations out there, like the ACLU, have actually been not great in their idea of what liberty is. Organizations like the ACLU have sued multiple states, multiple localities to allow people to live on the street in their own filth in the middle of mental psychosis. Well, J.D. Vance says that maybe it's time to change some of these things.
Do you believe there's a simple solution? This is from user Judy.
Okay.
For homelessness, especially for the mentally ill?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I know, Judy, I appreciate it. And any of us who live near or even just visit a big city to go to dinner or have a nice night out know that the homelessness problem in this country, especially in our big cities, is completely out of control. And this actually goes something I'm going to criticize President Reagan going back 40 or so years, because President Reagan made a decision to cut mental health care in this country. And the decision that we made collectively as a nation was we were going to let people live on the streets instead of sometimes being committed to inpatient mental health facilities. Now, what that has meant is that our taxpayers have picked up the burden of caring for those mentally ill folks. If you go to a county lockup, I mean, we have law enforcement officers here today. If you talk to a local sheriff, a lot of times our local jails have just become housing facilities for people who suffer with mental illness. I don't think that it's compassionate to let the mentally ill fester on the streets. Some of them have addiction problems. Some of them have other health problems. I think we need to get back to saying that if you have real mental health problems, you got to go to an inpatient treatment facility, get the care that you need, and not stop harassing people on our streets. That's not compassionate. It's not compassionate for the mentally ill. It's not compassionate for our residents in our cities. We've got to get back to something that actually, it wasn't perfect, and I wouldn't say that it was perfect, but our model now of just letting people hang out in the streets, some of them are freezing to death, some of them are dying of overdoses. It was a mistake.
It was a mistake. And I think that this is what has been happening a lot. And it's been arguments that I've gotten into with many people I know who have been in Republican politics for a long time, is that it is okay to criticize some of the things that happened during the Reagan era. It is okay to criticize the cutting of funding for the mentally ill. It is okay to criticize no-fault divorce. It is okay to criticize the Reagan-esque policies. He's the old 11th commandment. Thou shalt never speak ill of a fellow Republican? No. Because friends have conversations when their friends are doing something wrong. And 45 years worth of policy of allowing the mentally ill, schizophrenics, drug-addicted people to live on the street. There's a documentary out there called American Street Kid. It's on Amazon Prime. I would not recommend anyone watch that. It has got to be one of the saddest things I've ever seen. But we've basically legalized the ability to live on the street, and it hasn't done anyone any good. It doesn't do anyone any good. It doesn't do the people who walk the streets. It doesn't do it doesn't do the homeless any good. Maybe in L.A., in Venice Beach, maybe it does, where the weather is beautiful. But if you've ever walked the streets of New York City in February and seen some guy legitimately freezing to death while living on that doesn't help anybody. Is that freedom, really? And moreover, in a country as rich as ours, the fact that we can't figure out a way to better service those people is a crime in itself. Right now, we're watching the case of Daniel Penny in New York, a young man who protected other riders on a subway and ended up having to choke a mentally ill homeless man, unfortunately, to death. He's probably going to go away for quite some time for this. I don't blame Daniel Penny, and I don't blame Jordan Neely. I blame the society that allowed that man to live on the streets. I blame the system that did not care for this very mentally ill person very much in need, so that he would get to a point in his life where he was so banged up that he was just yelling at women on the subway. And because of that, an American Marine is probably going to go to jail for it. The Daniel Penny Jordan Neely case, it's not about Daniel Penny and it's not about Jordan Neely. It is about societal breakdown. And I hope we see more of this. And J.D. Vance is right. It's not going to be perfect. There's going to be mistakes made. And I'm sure there will be horror stories. However, 200,000 Americans are going to go to sleep tonight in L.A. on the street, living in their own filth, not knowing where they're going to get their next food from, selling themselves, rapes. That's not freedom. I'm sorry. And if the ACLU wants to argue that, well, you know what? Let them. Let them, because they're going to lose that argument in the public every single time. Before we keep rocking and rolling here today, guys.
Biggest benefit, honestly, has been with my skin. Skin was more hydrated, more radiant.
This is the best superfood that you could take.
It has all the essential nutrients you need for your skin, your gut, energy, focus, mood, performance.
My hair has gotten so much thicker ever since taking this.
I used to have a probiotic, a green juice. I replaced it all with this Armra colostrum. It is amazing.
You gotta take it.
If you want to try it, try armra.com.
Guys, start feeling better today with the superfood formula over at tryarmra.com/LFATV. That is tryarmra.com/LFATV to get 15% off and free shipping. That's tryarmra.com/LFATV. Guys, hit that thumbs up button. Share the video out. Let's go. We got 1,200 people watching. Let's get this Rumble chat up there. How is everybody doing today? How's everybody doing today? Boom, boom, boom. We get a sip while we keep going here. Let's get another sip while we keep going here. How's everybody doing? AC Knight, how are you? Marissa, how are you? Is Callie still in the chat? Did you guys all find out why she's mad at me? I'm in so much trouble. You guys have no idea. You guys have absolutely no idea. Let's keep rocking and rolling here today. So another thing that came up was tariffs. And I think Tariffs is something that is not well explained by a lot of people, but J.D. Vance did a pretty good job of explaining it at the town hall last night. Here it was.
You have to qualify the understanding based on what we just saw with those 20-plus Nobel winning economists who said, if you do tariffs the wrong way, you wind up spiking prices here that get passed on to the consumer. Yeah. And that was also additive to inflation. And they criticize the Trump administration and its future plan for being at risk of doing exactly that.
Sure. So I know that's a criticism that's been out there. Here's why I don't buy it. So first of all, these are the same experts that said shipping our entire manufacturing industry to China, to East Asia, to Mexico would lead to greater American prosperity. They were wrong. It was a mistake to do that. We followed their advice, and now, frankly, a lot of Americans can't afford a good life, can't earn a middle-class wage because we listened to some of those very same people. But the more immediate reason why I don't buy that argument, Chris, is, look, Donald Trump was already president, right? These aren't just plans and proposals. He was already president, and when he was president, you had he did use tariffs, right? And you had the fastest rising take-home pay in 40 years in this country. You had inflation at 1.5%. So, look, you don't have to agree with everything I say or everything that Donald Trump says, but when you actually look at the policy accomplishments, we had low inflation and rising take-home pay, and I think tariffs were a big part of that.
Tariffs were a big part of that. Because as we've talked about numerous times on this show, I think most people in this country would be willing to pay a little bit more for a dishwasher if they knew it was made in the industrial Midwest instead of in Singapore. And the fact is that I am so sick and tired of listening to experts. What makes a person an expert? Other than the fact that they're on TV talking about it. But I hate to break it to you, most people on TV are absolute morons, okay? Paul Krugman from the New York Times, their big economist over there, has literally made an entire career out of being wrong. Made a whole career out of being wrong. And you're right. Maybe Americans will have less items in their home because things will cost a little bit more. Well, maybe you'll only have 30 pairs of shoes instead of 40. Maybe you'll have 5 TVs instead of 6. Maybe. Maybe that's the medicine the American economy needs. I have long said that I think free trade has been one of the stupidest and least productive things for the average American worker. But it's not going to happen overnight. And if we start tariffing things that are made overseas, it's going to force these companies to either lose the American market or bring their stuff here, which is going to drive up wages, which is going to drive up a lot of these dead towns. Because if you're a car manufacturer, or car's a bad one, if you make any product, you may want to bring your factory to somewhere with cheap real estate prices. Maybe upstate New York. Maybe rural Pennsylvania. One factory, as we've seen through the 50s and the 60s and the 70s in this country, one factory can sustain an entire town. And when that factory goes, so does the town. So maybe it's worth trying something different, because 40 years of economic policy in this country has been the exact same way. Export jobs overseas. That way we can bring back goods at dirt cheap prices. I'm sorry. It's not good that Dollar Trees pop up in every American town. It's not. And I think that is the big difference between the economic message of the populace in this country and the neocon establishment moving forward. Mommy is right. Export jobs, then import illegals. That's basically what it's been. That's basically what it's been for a very, very long time. Guys, hit that thumbs up button. Share the video out all over the place. Share it out. Let's get to 300 by the end of the show today. We got 8 minutes left. I think we can do it. Before we keep going, guys, look, you didn't pay for this recession or the inflation, but you sure as heck are paying for it at the pump, at the grocery store, and at the stack of unpaid bills. And I know that financial stress is absolutely killing you. But your solution is donewithdebt.com. Unlike others, donewithdebt.com created new and aggressive strategies designed to get you out of debt permanently without bankruptcy or costly loans. Done with Debt stands between you and your bill collectors. They negotiate with your creditors to write off balances and cut those penalties. And they have plans to get more money in your pocket the very first month. The best news is that donewithdebt.com is currently taking on new clients. So guys, let Done With Debt hit that credit reset button for you and make your money start working for you again. But this is time sensitive, so make sure you guys go to donewithdebt.com or call 1-888-322-1054. That's 1-888-322-1054 and chat with one of their debt relief specialists today. So obviously, Democrats are scared. Democrats are scared. Because if Donald Trump is all of these big, bad, no good, very bad things that they claim he is, then why are things getting so close? So they are pulling out all the stops. We saw an article in The Atlantic the other day literally calling Donald Trump Hitler. Hillary Clinton, the dumbest person in America, the least talented person in America, continues to tout the fact that Donald Trump is having a rally at Madison Square Garden, just like the Nazis, except for the fact that she ignores that the Democratic Party actually has had 6 conventions at Madison Square Garden since that infamous Nazi rally in I believe it was in the 30s. Despite the fact that there are events that go on in Madison Square Garden every single day. Well, things are not starting to stick. They are throwing all that spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks, except for the fact that, not great. Not great when we start to get Holocaust survivors coming out in public talking about how calling Donald Trump Hitler is an affrontment to the people that actually survived it. Check this out.
My name is Jerry Wartsky. I'm 94 years old and survivor of Auschwitz and the Death Marches. Adolf Hitler invaded Poland when I was 9 years old. He murdered my parents and most of our family. I know more about Hitler than Kamala will ever know in 1,000 lifetimes. For her to accuse President Trump of being like Hitler is the worst thing I've ever heard in my 75 years living in the United States. I know President Trump, and he would never say this, and Kamala Harris knows this. She owes my parents and everybody else who was murdered by Hitler an apology for repeating this lie.
Why should the Jewish people support President Trump?
Because he's a mensch. I believe that President Trump is definitely going to be good for Israel, because in everything that he's done up to now was in favor. He never double-crossed anyone, and he never showed any weakness. Watching President Trump pray for the hostages at the Ohel and spend time with him so meaningful. He has always stood with the Jewish people and the state of Israel.
Look, aside from it not being true, aside from it being quite disgusting, what the left has done over the course of the last decade with the fascism talk, with the Nazi talk, with the racist, everything is racist, everyone is racist, la 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 la, everything I don't like is racist. If I don't like something, it's literally worse than Hitler. When you do that, all you do is allow genuinely bad people to be given cover in America. I am not a racist, But there are actual racists out there. So when Democrats go out there and they just smear people, what you do is they've painted it so that every Republican is a racist, therefore nobody is. If everyone is something, then everyone is nothing. And Fox News this morning put up this. Republicans who have been labeled fascist or Hitler. It's every Republican since like 1960. All you do is provide cover to the genuinely bad people in the world and in the country when you label everything that. Words matter. Words have definitions. There is nothing fascist about Donald Trump. Most people don't even know what the hell that even means. They just heard some idiot on television say it. And it's dangerous. And the stuff has to stop. It's got to stop. Guys, before we head out of here today, make sure you head on over to loudmajorityusa.com. That's loudmajorityusa.com. Sign up for the newsletter. Check out our shop. You guys can use promo code LFA to get 20% off everything on the website. That is loudmajorityusa.com. Use promo code LFA to get 20% off everything on the website. I want to thank everybody so much for tuning in. Guys, have a great weekend. I will see you at Madison Square Garden. Get the Cathedral of Sport. Donald Trump, giddy up. Let's go. Guys, vote early. Get involved. Find a candidate. Help them out. Ryan Mott is coming up next. Stay loud, everybody.